This is the Lutheran Education Podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we explore issues, trends, and events surrounding Christian education with your hosts, Richard Schumacher, Senior Director of Operations at LSCM, and Dr. Tracy Salgado, Director of Special Education at LSCM.
And welcome to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries. I'm your host today. My name is Richard Schumacher. I am the Senior Director of Operations at LSCM. And it is exciting to be able to bring the start of another season of podcasts on Lutheran Education Podcast. Crazy to think this is the 8th school year that we've been doing the podcast. And so just gone through a lot over the course of time, pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, all that good stuff. And just trying to continue to provide Lutheran educators with information that we feel is relevant and helpful to you, things to consider as you go about serving God by serving his children in your schools. So just really an honor and a pleasure. So want to start off today just by taking a couple of minutes to just thank the folks at LSCM who allow me and Dr. Tracy Salgado the opportunity to do this. Again, this is just something that we dreamt up wanting to be able to do. And the Stacy McGee, our president and CEO, has been really behind us doing this over the course of the last 8 years. And so it's great to have that support to be able to do that. I want to thank Dave Klonke, the guy behind the scenes that you never hear, but he does the recording for us and puts together the production, the advertising, all that. Does a great job behind the scenes. So definitely thanks to Dave and the folks that he works with to help put this podcast out. And of course, to our guests that we bring on a regular basis. Some of them we've had on multiple times because they bring insights that are really intriguing and helpful. And some we just have had on just the one time. But again, all of the guests that we bring on do so out of the goodness of their heart and volunteer their time to be able to do this. No big gifts or awards or stipends given out for their appearances, but they're just committed to Lutheran education and want to help our educators be better at their craft. So we're very thankful to them as well. As we get started with this school year, we're going to have, again, another very interesting slate of guests to come on and talk to you about a variety of different topics. But today, as we get started, you're going to hear from me. I'm going to be talking a little bit about school communication and parent-teacher conferences. I know it seems crazy to think, we just started school here within the last couple of weeks. What are we talking about parent-teacher conferences for? But they're coming quicker than you know it. It's early September now, but in a little over a month, we're all going to begin that process of cycling through those meetings. And there's some things to do now that would be helpful to just kind of set the table to be in a good position for that. So we're going to get to that in a moment. But first, before we get to that, I want to talk just in general about school communication and some of the practices that we have now. The the idea of communicating in schools has changed dramatically over the course of my 30 years in education, which is a crazy number to say. I don't feel like I've been in Lutheran education for 30 years, but some days I feel like it's been 300 years. But in terms of communication, long gone are just the simple school newsletter that goes out once a week to keep the parents informed of information. We've got so many different platforms and so many different methods that we use across Lutheran education to communicate to our families. And I just want to talk a little bit about some of those methods that we use just to give you food for thought to think about how can we do this and do this in the most effective way possible. So first question out the chute is, most people nowadays, most schools nowadays are utilizing electronic communications. The newsletters have gone digital and they're being sent out either in an email or an electronic newsletter. If you've got a school communication system like a Dojo or a Moodle or those types of things, those are being utilized. There's different services that can provide them to emails, different services that provide them to texts, all these different things. And so, what's the best way to do it? Well, I think we can put to bed the whole idea of the paper newsletter. It's really just not something that most parents nowadays are going to look at and find effective. If you have a handful of paper copies that are available to a family that, for whatever reason, specifically requests that, that's probably fine. But in today's day and age, that's really something that's just not out there anymore for most parents. So what I would say is if you're still trying to balance between those two different elements, start putting the paper to bed. Just shift to the electronic as your primary. And if you've got folks who absolutely have no way of getting it in a digital format, which seems odd, but if that's the case, then go ahead and on that request, go ahead and provide that. It's similar to, I think, tickets to sporting events. I suppose you can request, and some places will give you a paper ticket if you absolutely need it, but you have to probably go through a number of steps and hoops to get those, and they're very rare to get them from those different places. The sports teams have adapted a method where you have to use a smartphone to get a ticket to get into a sporting event, and they didn't apologize for it, and the consumer adapted. So I would say the same thing is true when it comes to newsletters. Pick the one area, the one method that you think is going to work best for your school and stick with it. You're going to have some folks who would rather you do this than that. But at the same time, if you stay consistent with this is the process that we're using, parents will adapt to that. Have some methods in there to be able to help them with that adaptation if they're struggling with a technology sort of thing, some troubleshooting. Be willing to help them in that regard. But if this just comes down to I prefer email as opposed to text message, or I prefer Dojo as opposed to Moodle, then work with them to just understand that they're going to need to adapt to be able to get that information. And what you'll see in time is they will certainly make that adaptation because they're going to want and need to get that information. So multiple platforms trying to get it out into 3, 4, 5 different places to accommodate, not the way to go. You're going to drive yourself and your secretary crazy trying to keep all of those things in various places. I would say the same in terms of your teacher newsletters. If you've got teachers who are sending out a weekly newsletter, they should really be in line with the same communication setup that the school is using. My daughter attended a Lutheran high school a few years ago, and she was very active in sports, in choir, in all sorts of different things, which is great. You want that. But what we found was each individual group selected their own method of communication for us. So we were signing up for texts from 2 and 3 different sites, plus the school's information. It got to the point where, as parents, we didn't know which place to check first for which information and what password here and there. It became too much. It became frustrating to try and follow the bouncing ball of where that information was coming from. So, as a school, find a method that works and get all of your coaches and teachers and directors on board to utilize that same tool. So that way, your parents don't have to chase down multiple different sites, multiple different resources. Also, put together a plan when it comes to when information is going to be shared. When it comes to your main school newsletter, your main information, there seems to be a couple of days each week that are the most promising for sending the information out. Either Mondays to start the week or Fridays to end the week. And I've heard teachers and administrators talk to me about the advantages and disadvantages of both. And people feel very strongly about what makes sense for them. Is there really one that's better than the other? Perhaps. If you talk to your parents and find out from them what they prefer, you'll probably get a split vote. So you're going to guarantee yourself to make a percentage of your parents happy and a percentage of your parents unhappy by going that route. So again, make a decision that makes the most sense and then stick with it. And if folks try to talk you into different dates and times, just stand on the ground of consistency. Sending it out the same time every week is going to make the most sense. And that also includes what time of day. Send it in the morning, send it in the afternoon, whatever the case may be. But if you start to get a consistent time for the release on those things, parents will begin to look for them. They're going to drive getting that information more regularly. If it's random times and there's no expectation, then it becomes less important for the parent to want to look because they feel like, well, it's not that important necessarily for the school to have it out at a certain point. Also, be cognizant of what time you're sending it in terms of sending them out extremely early in the morning or in the evening hours. Parents don't mind getting emails and text messages during certain times of day, but as you get into the evening, later that gets the less welcoming they're going to be for some type of a message. It makes them feel like they're kind of on the clock 24/7. They want that break just like you as educators want that break, when you're on a holiday weekend or even just a regular weekend. So I would suggest stay away from evening information drops, stay away from holiday information drops, Saturdays. Some schools will do a Sunday message to kind of start the week out right. And again, I don't have a problem so much with that if it's sent during the day at a consistent time. Then the parents can know to expect that. And then maybe that becomes part of their Sunday routine going into preparing for each school week to look for the information that's being shared. One of the nice things about doing the newsletters now, especially if you want to release them on a Friday or a Monday or a Sunday, is you can do these electronically and set them up with a delayed delivery. You can schedule delivery at a certain time. And I would really recommend doing that. This year at LSCM, I'm sending out newsletters to our teachers, and my goal is for them to arrive on the teacher's inbox every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. That way, all of my teachers, full-time, part-time, whatever may be, know to expect a message from me coming at that same time every week, and then they can start their week off right with getting that information. Plus, then I'm not hitting them throughout the week multiple times for multiple topics. One message that covers a number of different topics for them sent at a consistent time. Now, how I'm doing that is I'm setting that message up earlier in the week previous. So I talk with my colleagues and ask, are there any reminders we need to get out, any information you're sharing? And then typically I will spend a part of my Friday putting together the newsletter. And then once I have it completed to email out to my teachers, I will deliver it with a delayed delivery scheduled for 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday morning. It's off my plate. It's done on Friday. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about it. It just arrives on Monday morning, and then I can move on without having to scramble or wake myself up early or try first thing on a Monday to get a newsletter out, and then some other issue comes up which delays me or postpones it. So again, that advanced scheduling tool, very helpful when it comes to being able to put that information out. What types of things should you share? First of all, I would say send information out early enough for parents to get a good idea so they can advance plan, but not so early that it becomes stale. So if you have an event coming up in the next 3 weeks, that's a good time period to be able to send that out so that way they're getting that information and reminders ahead of time to just plan and kind of remind themselves of the event. But if you're doing something 3 months from now, unless it's a gala of some significance, like your annual benefit auction, or if it's something that has a travel component, like your class trip, save those things till it's a little bit closer. The last thing you want to do is send out a newsletter where the information that they're reading is the same week after week after week. Because after a while, parents are going to see that and say, I already know this. And then they're going to miss the points that you're really trying to make that week or any new information that may have come up. If you have long-term reminders that you want to send out or they stay on for a couple of weeks, might I suggest having a section at the top of your email for new information And then maybe a section down below a little bit that just says other reminders. So if it's already hit the newsletter once or twice, drop it down there so that way they can look to double check, yep, that's right, but it's not what you're leading with. You're always leading with something new. You're always leading with something fresh and interesting for the parents to be able to see. Make your newsletters as picture friendly as possible. Include events that are going on in the school. It doesn't have to be anything, significant. If there's a field trip, yep, take some pictures, that's fine. But even if it's just a picture of some kids out playing at recess or doing some work in the classroom, those types of pictures are definitely good. Vary the pictures up so you're getting kindergartners and eighth graders. Make sure you're getting as many of the kids as you can, so that way all the different families have that opportunity to look and see if their child made it into the newsletter in that given time. Make sure you're spreading the wealth so you're getting as many kids as possible. Also, make sure that you don't have any parents that have requested not to send out pictures or images of their kids in that regard. We at LSCM do that with all of our permission slips to make sure if we have any parents that don't want their child's image shared in any of our materials, and we double, triple check that before we send anything out. A good practice for you to do as well with your own newsletters, because in some instances, there may be a student who doesn't need to have their image put out there onto the interwebs for other people to see. Same with this in terms of the newsletter. Be cognizant of how many of these types of things you're sending out. Again, have a routine schedule is the best way of doing it, but try not to send them, multiple times a week at all hours of the day and night. Too much is not a good thing. It can start to be a turnoff to your parents, and they may choose to just kind of avoid or not click because, yeah, it's just always the same. And they get frustrated if it's being sent at a time that they're really not prepared or wanting to see it. Again, best thing is to talk to your parents and find out from them. What are their preferences? What do they like? What do they dislike? Every school is a little different in terms of the clientele and what the parents are looking for. So the more in tune and in touch you stay with those parents, the better able you'll be to meet their needs and serve them where they are at. All right. Threw a lot of things at you in a short amount of time, but hopefully there's some stuff in there that's good for thoughts. If you've got any questions or want to continue that conversation beyond that, I'm happy to do so. Just go ahead and hit me up with an email, rschumacher@luthsped.org, and we can talk in specifics or generalities about other components when it comes to overall school communication. We'll get into talking about parent-teacher conferences after this break. You're listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear today, please consider sharing our podcast with friends and colleagues in the industry. Again, thank you for listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast.
And welcome back to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries. Again, my name is Richard Schumacher. Parent-teacher conferences, they're a staple of every school. Over the course of the first quarter of the year, a lot of work has been done. And so now we're coming together for that first time. And in most schools, this could be the only formal time that the parents are invited in during the school year to talk about progress. You've established some baselines of where the students are performing. And if there are concerns, this is the time to be able to have those conversations to help make things better so the student can excel at a greater level over the course of the next 3 quarters. There are a lot of things that teachers can do to make these conferences go better. And over the course of time, I've had a lot of conversations and done a lot of research on some of those things. So I just want to share about 8 points with you to help make your parent-teacher conferences be a little more effective. So start off with number one, be on time. I know most schools have a structure that parents will sign up for a certain block of time, and it's a short block of time. It's maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes max, again, depending on how many days your school devotes to them. Uh, Parents are expecting to be able to come in, get to their conferences, and then get on with the rest of their day. You as a teacher have the pressure of making sure you're staying on time because you're scheduled back to back to back. Or if you've got a family who's got multiple kids in your school,
Your school.
they're trying to get from one classroom to the next based on how it was scheduled. And if somebody's running behind, that can really throw a monkey wrench into the works. So you want to make sure you're staying on time. One of the things that I always did when I had teacher conferences was I set a timer. And when the parents came in, I let them know, hey, I'm setting the timer here just because I want to be a respecter of your time and the other parents' time. So we're going to set this so that way, as we get to talking, if we're running long, we'll have a reminder to keep us on schedule and then make sure that you're able to get to your next meeting or I can get to my next meeting as needed. Don't feel bad about it. Parents are going to respect the fact that you're doing it, especially if you say up front that's what you're going to do. And if multiple teachers in your building all have that same process, then that is a very helpful way of doing it. Now, if your school has teacher conferences where all of the teachers have their own table in the gym and the parents can just go from one to the next, that's a little bit different sort of a structure. But even there, what I would say is have a policy in place where you're letting the parents know this is the maximum amount of time that I can allocate to talk to you during this time frame because there might be two and three and four other parents waiting behind that parent to talk. And so, if the time needs to be extended or if the topic just doesn't get satisfied within the time that's allowed during the conference, be ready to schedule an additional meeting with the parent afterwards to go more in depth into questions that they may have or concerns that you might have. Number two, please have adult-sized chairs for your parents. This is a particularly important idea for our elementary school teachers. Everything in a kindergarten classroom is designed for kindergartners. Parents of kindergartners are not designed for kindergarten-sized chairs. And so you want to make sure that you're making the parents feel welcome and comfortable by having furniture that is shaped and sized to meet their needs. So make sure that you've got those in there. What I would do, I would bring in a table to the classroom, and I would bring in a set of chairs to accommodate the parents and myself. If I know that I've got, say, a family that's more of a blended situation, and you've got a step parent in there or a grandparent who's very active and they've asked to be part of the conference, have enough chairs to be able to accommodate the total number of people that you're going to need. Also, your chair should rival what they're using in terms of their chair. Please make sure that you understand. Don't let uh, don't let the parents walk in and sit on a folding chair and then see you rolling up in the most comfortable chair that you possibly have. So make sure that you're sitting in a chair that's similar to them. The table should be alongside of you. That's the third point. Number three, table alongside, not in between. You want to make sure that you're establishing for the parents that there's no barriers between that. Again, using a desk or a table and having that between you sometimes sends a message of authority. You want to send a message of collegiality. You're partnering with the parent to do this. So have the table alongside with whatever information that you need to be able to do the conference. But really, there shouldn't be anything between you and the parent, so that way you can send off a message of we're working together to meet a common goal. All right, so that was topic number three, table alongside but not between. Number four, talk in advance with the parent to clearly establish if the student should or should not be present during the conference. That doesn't seem like a big deal, and in many cases, maybe it's just established within the school that students are there or they're not. But clarify that in advance. You don't want the parent to assume that the child should be there, and then you're wanting to discuss things with the child not, or vice versa. So establishing that communication in advance so that way they're aware of that is going to be helpful. Now, do also understand, and this is more of a school-wide thing than just your classroom, so talk amongst your staff with this. You do have to be prepared for those parents who are coming in because it's during the school day, having their children with them because they don't have another option for them to go. They don't have a relative or a friend or whomever can watch the child. So if the parent is coming in for the meeting and the student's not going to be joining them, have an idea in place for where those students can go and what they're going to do so they're not sitting in the hallway, unsupervised or doing anything else that might create problems that you have to deal with. You want to be able to focus your time and attention on the parent. So have that conversation in advance and have a plan in place ready for them to go. Number five, have two copies of all of the documents that you have intended to show the parents for this conference. One for you, one for them. If you've got, again, a step parent who's also coming in or an additional adult, grandparent, whomever, guardian coming in, having an additional copy for that one also makes sense, but have enough copies available to provide just what you need for everybody to have what they're looking for. So you're not having to share or read upside down or do all those other things as you're having this conversation. I would recommend that, and again, this might seem counterintuitive in today's more digital society, but I would recommend in these cases that if you're meeting face to face, having the documentation works better than just reading it off your phone or off a computer screen. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but it's just something about having the documentation and a paper copy there so that way both groups can look at it, review it, be able to see the fullness of what you're trying to convey without having to find a link or wait for the PDF to load or deal with a electronic Wi-Fi issue. This next one, number six, is probably the biggest, most important one that you can possibly have. If you're a new teacher, if you don't hear any of the other things that I've said, please understand this. This will save your life more than anything else. Parents coming into this parent-teacher conference should not have any surprises that are coming their way. Now, this might seem weird because it's the easiest thing in the world to tell yourself as a teacher, well, I won't mention this to the parent now. We'll just discuss it at teacher conference. We'll just discuss it. The problem is the parent is going to be blindsided if they are getting information, especially if it's negative information, for the first time. They're going to have an understandable emotional response. But as they're having the emotional response to the information, they're going to lose the ability to have a rational response to the information. And that's what you're looking for. If you're working together to solve a problem and the parent is immediately feeling like they're on the defensive because this is the first I'm hearing of this is a lower grade than I was expecting, my child's been misbehaving for weeks, and this is the first time that you're telling me. All of those different surprises are going to have the ability to take this conference and turn it into the parent asking questions of you as to why you did or didn't do what you did. They're also going to become defensive because they're now trying to figure out what happened and they don't want to feel like they were slacking on their parental duties as well. The easiest way to avoid all of this is to have good lines of communication with the parent well in advance of the conference. So make sure you're communicating effectively with parents for the first 10 weeks. And don't just assume I sent home the assignments so they saw them. Don't just assume I kept my online grade book up to date and so I know that they've read it. Don't make those assumptions. If there are issues and concerns, start talking about those well in advance, and you can point toward the conference as, well, this will be our time to sit down and map out ideas for how we're going to approach this so we can, again, work together to help solve whatever issues or problems we might be having. But surprising a parent with any type of behavioral or academic problem at these conferences is a surefire way to turn your otherwise peaceful conference into a confrontational one and damage a relationship that you're trying to build with the parent as you guys work together to assist in the education of their child. So, again, no surprises. I cannot emphasize that enough. Number seven, Don't use your grade book. Again, if you've got the online access to the grade book, I really recommend having things printed out. It might take more time, but here's the thing about having your grade book, whether it's paper or electronic there. One student's listed amongst a group of 20, 25, whatever's in your classroom. By opening that up and using it to show the parent, you are running the risk of having your parents see information about other students that they really should not be seeing. If the program has the ability to have one single page up for one single student, perhaps that can work for you. But again, it's probably easier to have the parent looking at a sheet of paper as opposed to trying to lean across and look on the table at your computer screen with all the things that are there. It's too easy for problems to pop up and happen in that regard. So be prepared in advance. Have a folder there for every student that you're seeing. Have them in order of the students that you're seeing throughout the day. So first student who's conferencing is on the top of the pile, the last student's on the bottom of the pile. Open it up, pass out whatever you need to pass out, be able to write your notes and information in there to put it back in the file, and then when that student is done, lay it down, put it away, and then move on to the next one, and then just keep working through the pile. And then finally, number 8, this is your opportunity to be able to interact with these parents in a formal but yet friendly manner. This is their chance to come into your classroom and see what their child is experiencing on an everyday basis. So, showing student work, yeah, we get that. Have that up on the walls so that way parents can see kind of what's going on. If they want to see their child's desk and what that looks like, feel free to let them take a peek. If they start trying to clean it, probably shut that down because your schedule's not going to allow for that, and they'll have a chance to be able to do that later. But this is the opportunity that you have to be able to share with your parents on an individual basis the love that you have for their child and the love that you have for your Savior. Take that opportunity. Start every conference with a word of prayer. Every conference with a word of prayer, whether it's going to be a rather contentious one because the student's not performing well, or if this is the all A future valedictorian who you don't really have anything bad to say about, you're just going to sit and have a conversation with. But definitely use that as an opportunity to pray for the student, for the family, for the year and the progress that they're making in your classroom. Have that opportunity to just extend a little bit of who you are as a person, as a teacher. It's not that you're going to make it about you by any stretch, but give the parents every opportunity to know that, again, because you're working together, you guys are partners in this endeavor. It allows you to convey to them an openness and a willingness to hear what they have to say, and also conveys to them the idea that you have their child's best interest at heart. And then finally, do ask the questions of the parents. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? Ask them how they are participating in this process. It's not about giving up control and letting the parents decide what sort of curriculum we're going to use or what sort of method we're going to use in the classroom per se, but tap into the knowledge that the parent has of the child, because you may have known this child from when he was a kindergartner and now he's sitting in your eighth grade classroom, but that parent knows that child from the moment they were born. They've got a lot of information to share, a lot of insights to provide, but so many of us as teachers forget to ask because we don't trust the information that they're going to give us, or we don't feel it's relevant because we're talking about a social studies grade after all, not about what the child's interests are. But as you have opportunities to do so, always get your parents' thoughts and ideas and advice to allow them to feel like they are a critical part of this process, because they are a critical part of this process. Again, if you have any other questions or thoughts on ways to more effectively manage your parent-teacher conferences as the fall rolls on, feel free to reach out to me again. Happy to have those conversations in generalities or specifics. Again, my email address is rschumacher@luthsped.org, and I'll be happy to just have some conversation with you and discuss my experiences and again, what I've learned over the years, doing them, leading teachers who are doing them, and in doing research on effective methods of homeschool communication. Well, that about does it for our first episode here of the year. Look for continuing episodes of the podcast to come out every other Tuesday. So this one was dropped on September the 9th. So September 23 will be our next podcast. If you're going to be at LEA, please stop by the LSCM booth in the exhibit hall. The whole team will be there, and we're looking forward to meeting and reconnecting with a lot of you at LEA here in just a couple of weeks. Blessings on the start of your school year. Thank you for your time today. On behalf of all of us at LSCM, we appreciate it. I'm Richard Schumacher again, thanking you for listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast brought to you by LSCM.
Thank you for listening. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. For more information about LSCM, go to our website at luthsped.org. You can follow us on X by going to www.x.com/LSCM1873 or on Facebook at facebook.com/LSCM1873. If you're on Instagram, you can find us by going to @LSCM1873. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. Did you enjoy today's podcast? Want to help get the word out? Please leave us a review on the app you're using to listen today.